Hello everyone, today we're going to be covering playoff matchups if they started today, and we'll be talking about some storylines, narratives, stuff like that we'd hear about. Now, before we start, please make sure to subscribe to the channel if you are new and want to see more content like this. So, starting off in the Eastern Conference, we'll get a look at the matchup of the Florida Panthers against the Washington Capitals. Now, for Florida, I think some storylines here that the media will focus on will be the fact that they haven't won a series since 1996, the last time they were in the Stanley Cup Finals, and the fact that they really do need to win a playoff series here in order to, A, help out the fan base, but B, really the big thing is they've made some big acquisitions here, and it would be really bad if they weren't able to win a series. You got Reinhart, Giroux, some other moves they've made as well aren't moves that they make just to lose in the first round. So that's going to be a big storyline there. And if they were to lose this round, expect plenty of media pressure again. And even if it's not done, they're still going to focus a lot in the media. Now for Washington, this is a team that's consistently been good for a very long time, but they have not exactly been able to win a crazy amount of postseason appearances or postseason rounds, and the past 3 years has been an example of that. They haven't got out of the first round in the past 3 years, and while they do have some very notable guys such as Alex Ovechkin on the roster, this is a team that has not been able to get it done once the postseason has come around. Now, would losing this year make them change the direction of the franchise? Probably not, because A, you've got 4 more years of Ovechkin guaranteed after this, and the fan base has got used to winning. I'm sure they would not appreciate having to have Alex play on a bad team if they decided to go rebuild. But I'm starting to think going forward that they are going to have to figure out what to do and how to make this team better, because if they keep going how they're going, they're going to be a team that makes the first round and loses in the first round every year. So there's that. Now, we'll get an Atlantic clash as well, in this being the Maple Leafs against the Lightning, that I think is going to be really exciting should this playoff matchup happen. For Toronto, the storyline is obviously going to be, can they win this series? Can they win a playoff series? This would be their 6th time around. They say 3rd time's a charm. How about 6th for Toronto? And I think that's going to be a narrative that is going to plague this team until they're able to win it, and especially because you're in that Toronto market. And my big thing is, I think we're also here a lot about what happens if they don't win this series. Let's be real. A lot of Toronto media, and I think fans, for good reason, are fairly negative and expect the worst, which I'm not going to blame them, but I think that's going to be a big talk there. And then also how they will react should they not win. It's going to be a big storyline. Would one of the big 4 get moved? We've been saying that for so long. This is going to be going into my 3rd playoff series doing this channel, and I think that, that's a story that I've covered for the whole time as well. And you think back to some other guys that have channels, this is a storyline they followed for a while. And now for Tampa Bay, I think it's pretty simple. Their storyline is going to be, can they three-peat as a wild card? Yes, they have not been able to stay in that top 3 as of late, and I think they had actually lost 4 in a row recently here before they snapped it against Buffalo, winning 5-0. But yeah, that's going to be a big storyline. They're a wild card, and that doesn't mean anything bad. They are still a great team. This team has a lot of depth. This team is very good, and I think you look at the Atlantic, like I said multiple times this year, it's such a top-heavy division that them being a wild card would make them one of the most dangerous wild cards of all time. And I do think that a big storyline we're going to hear, though, is if they lose, does this mean this is the beginning of the end for the Tampa Bay Lightning, which, again, you're playing Toronto, which is a really good team. I know they haven't won postseason since, the early 2000s, but this is a very good team. So should they lose, I don't think it's the end of the world like people are going to make it out to be, but that's going to be a big talk there. And of course, we'll get another matchup of a recent rivalry that's been really great in the Hurricanes against the Bruins. Big thing here, Carolina. Can they get past the Bruins? They have been a thorn in their side, and it's one of those things that Carolina definitely has a lot of talent, and Boston, you think back to the year that they went on to play the Blues, got in Carolina's way, which was kind of really refreshing to see the Hurricanes be able to make it to that conference finals that year. And I think another story here that's going to be big is their goaltending going to hold on in the playoffs? You get Freddie Anderson, that is a good goalie. I really do believe that, but there were some games in the postseason where he just had some bad ones. And it was, again, being a goalie is so difficult, especially at the NHL level where the players are so good and you're playing against teams like Boston, and things like that. I think it would really be cool for him to be able to get a redemption and against the Bruins be able to win that for the Hurricanes and maybe for himself. That's a big one there. Now, I think on the flip side of that, It's going to be for the Bruins, how much longer this team is capable of winning in the postseason. They've got some good guys. They really do. That top line, of course, is lethal. But this is a thing where some of their better guys are a little bit older. How many more years are we going to see the Bees have this dominant top line? How much longer are we going to see the Bees be in this talk of, okay, yeah, they can win a round, but can they go deep? That's going to be a big storyline here. And also, are there unproven goalies in Ullmark and Swayman capable of helping this team to a deep run? My opinion, yes, I do think they absolutely are. Ullmark obviously was a guy that came over from Buffalo. I was kind of high on him because I do feel like for a lot of guys in a lot of different positions, you come on over from Buffalo to Boston or just a better team, you're going to play better theoretically, and I think that he could be a guy. Also, Swayman is a guy that I really do have a lot of faith in. They're very high on Swayman, and I would love to see these two guys, whether it be one of them just going on a tear and starting all these games for him, or both just going in and out if they felt more comfortable that way, getting some experience in the postseason, but also helping their team win. Are they capable of it? Personally, I think yes, but the narrative is going to be around that. Now, finally, in the East, we're going to be looking at a battle of two Metro teams, and that is going to be the Rangers against the Penguins. Now, for New York, I think a big storyline here is going to be, can they score at 5-on-5 play, as they've drawn a lot of their goals through the penalty, and that's going to be another thing. Can they draw enough penalties and capitalize on those penalties to win in the playoffs? That's going to be huge for them, and I'm really skeptical about them being able to draw enough penalties in order for that to make a major impact, because you got to think, for a power play, even as good as it can be, it's not going to score at the rate enough where the postseason penalties get lowered because they want the guys to play on. And so I think a big thing here is for New York is, of course, you have to score. Wherever you're getting the puck, you have to be able to score at full strength. But also, of course, you're going to have to capitalize on the power play. I don't know. The Rangers are that team where I've said I could see them losing in the first round and everybody being, I don't think everybody would be shocked at this point, but I could see them losing in the first round or just magically going on a tear. So we'll see. And then, of course, Igor Shesterkin, will he have to do the heavy lifting to give the Rangers its first trip to the second round since 2017? He has had just a crazy year. I kind of worry that a deep run for the Rangers would make them think they're invincible, or at least make management think that they're just this juggernaut, which New York certainly has some talent and is a good team in a lot of ways, but also they do have some flaws that they're going to have to figure out. Now, for the Penguins, a big thing here is going to be, will their goaltending be an issue for them in the postseason? Has been before. Will it now? I was kind of surprised. I really did think they were going to try to make a move for Fleury just to bring him back. They didn't. Minnesota got him, and they went from there on, and that was something that was kind of weird. But the other thing is, besides goaltending, can they get back into the playoffs in the sense of winning in the playoffs? This has been something that they've struggled with as of late, and it's been a norm for Pittsburgh to be able to get some wins, but it's also been a norm for them some years to not be able to get out of the first round. They have to get back into that championship mindset because you have Malkin, you have Crosby, you have so many guys that are still very good players, and they have to get back to that. Now, that's going to be the final one for that, is will Malkin be in his last few games with Pittsburgh? I think he is a free agent after this year, and he is a guy that obviously has played a lot of games and been a very good player for the Penguins, but is this going to be his last run? And if so, how is it going to end for the legendary Pittsburgh player? Now, heading to the West and taking a look at the Avs Stars storyline, I think, for the Avalanche, is Gabriel Landeskog going to be healthy? And how will he play at the start of the postseason? He's a guy that has been dealing with an injury, and it was just to the point where he couldn't deal with it anymore, and he had to have some work on that, and that is going to be a big thing for Colorado. If he, A, isn't able to play, or B, isn't healthy, that could definitely hurt them. Maybe not so much this series, if they're able to handle the Stars, but down the road against better teams. Now, of course, other storylines here will be, can the Avs finish off this series early and try to get some rest, but also can they get past the second round? This is not so much in relation to the Stars themselves, but I do think we've seen a lot of Colorado. They are a very good team. They haven't been able to get that deep run going. That's going to be a huge narrative here for the Avs that they're going to have to deal with, and hopefully for them able to get on a deep run this year. Who knows, maybe Stanley Cup Finals. Now, for the Stars, is this team capable of upsetting Colorado? Any team is really capable of upsetting other teams in the playoffs, because the playoffs are random. You have guys get hot and then they go on a run. Teams have done that before. And then also, will Jason Robertson have to do a lot of the heavy lifting? He's obviously been a breath of fresh air for Dallas, but going to need other guys to do it, and with Robertson, that's certainly not going to be able to be enough. You're going to have other guys have to step up, and there you go with that. Now, another thing that I think is going to be huge here for Dallas is, while their future prospects do look good, what is the outcome not only of this playoff series but going forward next year? Where is Dallas headed in the short term? Because I think that their long term, if some of these prospects pan out, is pretty good. But for their short term, I'm kind of worried about what's going to happen, and I think that this series against Colorado could really expose that they're not where they want to be. Now, another look at a central matchup is going to be the Wild versus the Blues. Minnesota storylines. Will Marc-Andre Fleury be able to be their rock in net for the Wild? He is a guy that has come in, and he has been a breath of fresh air for them as well. And I know Cam Talbot wasn't doing the greatest, but he's been able to do better since Fleury got there. He kind of got this goalie competition. But Marc-Andre Fleury has been in a lot of playoff series for this team. They have an experienced goaltender in net now in the Wild against the Blues. And are they going to be able to rely on him? I surely hope so. I really do. I would love to see the Wild go on a run. And because of that, my thing is, are they a dark horse, or is the media going to view them as a dark horse? I like Minnesota. I still don't know if I view them as a dark horse. They certainly could go on a run, but I'm just not so sure about them being a dark horse to win the Cup. Watch me see that now, and then them hoist the Cup here in June. But yeah, I think there's going to be major storylines for them. As for St. Louis, would a run make up a want for Vladimir Tarasenko to stay with the Blues? Personally, I don't know what's going to go on there. He showed that he can still play this year. I know that I haven't taken a deep dive into his numbers, but just looking at some of these things, it shows that he is still capable of playing, and especially on a better team, I think he'd be A-okay. But I'm curious to see if he wants to stay with a good run with St. Louis. And then, of course, you've got a storyline of, will a guy like Pavel Buchnevich be able to be the difference maker in this series? Curious to see how he does in his first year with the Blues in the postseason. Hope he can do well, and I think that him going over to St. Louis was just a beautiful thing for them. And then, of course, you've got Jordan Binnington. Is he going to be in net? Probably not, but if he got in there, could he go on a run like he did when they ended up winning the Stanley Cup Finals? I don't know. I don't even know if he'll be in net for them at all in the playoffs, but I really hope he could redeem himself. Now, for a really intriguing matchup of the Flames and the Preds, Calgary is a team that they're viewed as a potential contender, but are they a true contender? We'll see how they do against a team like Nashville. Of course, is there enough scoring depth for this team? 54% of their goals have come from 4 players this year. Who's going to step up for them in case something happened where their guys that were their top 4 producers aren't able to produce in the playoffs? Now, of course, another storyline here is going to be whether or not Johnny Gaudreau will be leaving after this year. He has been a guy that they haven't been able to lock up just yet, and he is an unrestricted free agent after this year, having a crazy good year. Looks like it could be a career best season for him, and he is certainly a name that we'll focus on in the postseason. And I'd love to see him leave Calgary just because it would take this, the Flames would lose one of their guys, but I really am curious to see if he resigns. And finally, I think we get one of the more underrated playoff matchups this year in the Oilers and the Kings. So for Edmonton, can they win a round? They've only won, I believe, 1 round with Connor McDavid since he's been there, and I think that's going to be a big storyline there too, about whether or not their goaltending can be good enough. Goalies have not exactly been dominant for Edmonton, especially as of late in recent years, but I think that they could have enough scoring from some of their guys that if their goalies could just hold on and not let in a bunch of goals, then they could. I got to be honest, I don't think they're going to go to deep run, but I think they could at least make it to the second round. But of course, who's going to step up? Because you've got McDavid and Draisaitl. If they are not able to produce at a level that you need, you're going to have other guys. Curious to see how they do that. And for the Kings, certainly a lot of interesting storylines here. How will they contain McDavid and Draisaitl? That's going to be huge, because if you lock them up, or at least contain them, you're going to be in a better spot to win this series. Are they ready for this moment? This is a team that I think a lot of us weren't expecting them to be here. I know I kind of said I expected them to hang out in that 5th or 6th spot in the division this year, but of course they are fighting for a playoff spot and look like they're going to be in a good spot for them. And of course, the storyline is going to be, is this a norm for them going forward after they had missed the playoffs the past few years, or are they here too early? In my opinion, still up in the air, but I think next year they could fall back out of the playoff spot. It just depends on a lot of things that I'm not going to say yes or no to just yet, but I think them against Oilers is going to be a really fun matchup, and I'd love to see how that would go. Obviously, there are other narratives to focus on, and these aren't strictly what I'd focus on, but just a lot of things I think the media would focus on, and some of them are definitely things I agree with as well. So let me know what you think of these matchups. Obviously, not all of them could hold through the end of the year or the end of the season, and we could see different matchups, but I'm excited to see what we get, and I'm looking forward to the playoffs, which is starting up here soon. So make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you are new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. You go love hockey, all right. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.